Namaskaram to all. So once again, back in the room for another session of Nidanam, at least for the namesake. We were discussing about Prakriti and as I mentioned earlier, the level of intellectual turbulence that it is creating is so nice to watch. Every day I'm getting new and new questions from the participants, which is a good sign, I should say. So let us start with our regular prayers. Chaturmukha Samarambham Vakbhadacharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryandam Vande Guru Paramparam Ragadirogan Sadatanushaktan Asheshakaya Prasrudan Asheshan Aulsukyamoha Aradidan Jakhana Yopurva Vaidyaya Namostu Tasmai. In our previous session, we discussed many things about Prakrita dosha, Vaikrita dosha, and tried to answer many points which were forwarded as questions in the session before. Now, there were many questions in our last session in the chat box. Today, I saw another 3-4 questions posted in the group just now. So I think I have planned to discuss very minimum things today, because I will try to find some time to answer those questions as well. Regarding Prakriti, Acharya Charaka makes two different occasions. He finds two different occasions to explain something about the concept of Prakriti. One is with the Sutrasthanam Navegandharaniyam, where we find Samapitta Anilakaphaha Kejid Garbhadi Manavaha. Every sentence is important, every line is important, every padam word is important. Samapitta Anilakaphaha Kejid Garbhadi Manavaha. Drishyande Vadalaha Kejid Pittalaha Shleshmalas Tatha. Tesham Anaduraha Purve Vadaladhyaha Sadaduraha Doshanushaita Hyesham Deha Prakriti Ruchyate. That is what we find in the Navegandharaniyam chapter. Sutrasthanam Navegandharaniyam. I will read the shloka once again. Samapittanila kaphaha Kejid garbhadi manavaha drishyante Vatalaha Kejid Pittala Shleshmalas Tatha Tesham Anaduraha Purve Vataladhya Sadaduraha Doshanushaita Hyesham Deha Prakriti Ruchyate. Let us see the observations documented by Acharya Charaka properly in detail. What is he expressing? Kejid Manavaha. Kejid Manavaha. Certain individuals, Garbhadi. From the beginning of Garbha itself, in brackets, Samapittanila kaphaha drishyante. Sama Pittanila Kaphaha Drishyante appears as Sama Pittanila Kaphaha. Appears as Sama Pittanila Kaphaha. Tatha, in the same way, similarly, Kejid Manavaha Vatalaha Drishyante, Kejid Pittalaha, Kejid Shleshmalaha. Similarly, certain individuals appear as Vatalaha, certain individuals as Pittalaha, and certain others as Shleshmalaha. So, we find some as Samapittani Lakabha, some as Vatala, some as Pittala, and some others as Shleshmala. So, we should assume that there can be Dundwa as well, Vada Pittala, Pitta Shleshmala, and Vada Shleshmala. They are coming in between, though not mentioned separately. That is the way in which Shastra is narrated, which is taken for granted. Now, Tesham, among these individuals, Purve Anaturaha, those coming in the Purve, first category, are Anaturaha. They are without any morbidity. Vadaladhyaha, those coming under the categories Vatala, Pittala, and Shleshmala, obviously the Dvandva Prakriti also, as we mentioned earlier, Sadaturaha, are always perpetually morbid. They are perpetually morbid. So, Samapittani Lakaphaha are Anaturaha without any sort of morbidity, whereas all the rest are always morbid, afflicted, weak, Pidida. These are all the meanings of Adurata. So, here we find people categorized first into 7 groups. Samapittani Lakabha, Shleshmala, Pittala, Vatala, Shleshma Pittala, Pitta Vatala, Shleshma Vatala. Then into 2, Anaturaha, Sadaturaha. Then the shlokas, there are one more shloka is that is Esham, of these individuals, Doshanusayita. Doshanusayita hi esham deha prakriti ruchyate. That is the line. Padam. So, esham, of these individuals, Doshanusayita, Doshanusayita, the state or condition of Doshanusayita, attachment or close connection with the dosha, which is formed as a result of or consequence of its presence from the very beginning of Garbha. That is what we mean by the term doshanusayita, anusayaha, anubandhaha. So, esham doshanusayita deha prakritihi uchyatehi. Be informed that it is known as deha prakriti. This sort of a doshanusayida, this sort of an attachment of the sharira with the dosha, which is there from the very beginning, is known as their deha prakriti. So, if we put all these statements Spread across these three shlokas together, we get some individuals are samapittani lakabha from the beginning of their garbha. They are having a samadosha deha prakriti. Samar vatalaha, samar pittalaha, and samar sleshmala. This also happens from garbha. So they are also prakritis. They are also prakriti, deha prakriti. Even though they are vatala. Similarly, there can be dvandva prakritis as well, which we discussed. And of these, the samadosha deha prakriti individuals show no morbidity at all by default. But does that mean that a samadosha deha prakriti will never get sick? No. That is a twist. But they are known as anatura, no morbidity by default, whereas the other prakritis, that means shleshmalaha, pittalaha, vatalaha, are sadaduraha, sada aturaha, perpetually, in a way that never ends, never changes, perpetually morbid. This is a very important observation. It shows that in a samadosha prakriti, who is anadura, each of the three doshas are equal. No one dominates. It is very, very risky to use these words like equal, because whenever you heard samam, there are many possibilities of perceiving a samata. But I think because of the limitation of languages to explain these sort of concepts. The other day, somebody was asking me, I think there are some words which are not strong enough to express the idea clearly. That is true. Actually, this session should have been conducted in a classroom with nothing like a PowerPoint presentation or nothing like that, but with maybe a green big board and a piece of chalk offline. That is the best way to communicate. Anyway, so samadosha prakriti with the doshas equal, no one dominate. So a person with a sama prakriti has no morbidity by default. Whereas in a vadala person, that means a person with a vada deha prakriti, or you take similar prakriti, a pitta deha prakriti or kabha deha prakriti. For the sake of explanation, I am taking vatala prakriti, that's all. There is a dominant dosha by default. And accordingly, there will be specific reflections of the dominating dosha. In our example, vata, in all traits of that person's sharira, in all traits of the sharira of that person. Say, for example, spudida keshatvam, spudidatvak. Spudida Gatrata. So Spudida Angatvam is a feature of Vata Prakriti. As I mentioned earlier, that word which is going to never change, never ends, perpetual. So this Spudida Gatratvam is not going to change at all. And the person has to bear with that affliction lifelong. He has to bear with it lifelong. And that makes her or him sadatura. Some sort of a aturata, weakness, some sort of a pida is there always with that individual. That makes him sadatura. But this sadadurata does not make this person sick with a disease, but definitely makes her or makes him susceptible to certain specific diseases caused by Vata when compared with the other people, other individuals. So that creates a susceptibility which makes him sadadura. Same is the case with the Pitta Prakriti or Kabha Deha Prakriti individuals. So this sort of an attachment or close connection of a Sharira with a dosha or doshas, whether it is Sama, Eka or Dvandva, is called the Deha Prakriti of a person. Is called the Deha Prakriti of a person. I hope the idea is getting clear or clearer. Further, see, now we used the certain terms like anaduraha, sadaduraha. In this context, one point is to be made clear. Or there can be a question. See, a sadadura person, as I mentioned earlier regarding the anadura, does it mean that this person with the samapittanila or samadosha deha prakriti will never get afflicted by a disease? No, that is not the case. In normal conditions, he has zero susceptibility. But when there are influencing factors which are strong enough to break that zero susceptibility condition, definitely he will fall sick. In the same way, when we say that somebody is sadaduraha, does it mean that this person will never become swastha? No. So it looks like a conflicting statement that at one point you are saying that he is sadadura, and the other side you are saying that it does not mean that he will never be swastha. The swasthya of that person in a person who is sadadura is a bit different. The swasthya here is a samadoshata. Samadoshata. So that samadoshata is about the optimal functioning of the three doshas based on the default setting. The default setting in a Vatala Deha Prakriti is that Vata is dominating, whereas Pitta and Kapha are not that dominant. So his body traits will be reflecting the dominance of Vata everywhere. That is why he find that he is having a Spudita Gatrata. With that base or foundation, he can have his Vayu operating in the optimal level in which it is supposed to operate. Pitta operating in his optimal level in which it is supposed to operate. Shleshma operating. But that swasthyam is highly person-centric. So there, the three doshas operate normally in her or his sharira as customized by the dosha or doshas predominating in the Deha Prakriti. So, that observation throws light to a very interesting idea that when we say something like an idea like swasthya, apart from our efforts to make it objective, has a purely subjective notion. Swasthya as a subjective or experiential state of well-being, which is very difficult to objectify beyond certain levels. But it is at the same time, you should not make it, or misunderstand it as a state of false euphoria. It is not like that. There should be objective parameters. That is what we find in a very holistic framework of defining swasthya, samadosha, samagnischa, samadhadu malakriya. So there will be many measurable agents or principles in it. But at the same time, this samadosha, samagnischa, samadhadu malakriya sort of swasthya will not be same in a Vadala Deha Prakriti and a Pittala Deha Prakriti, even though they will both be included in the framework of Swastha. And this is based on the Prakriti. So one Prakriti, somebody was asking, see, Prakriti Sthapanam is Chikitsa. So Prakriti Sthavanam, say for example, a Vada Prakriti person afflicted with the Vada predominant Vyadhi, a Vada Vyadhi. We are going to treat him. Prakriti Sthapanam. Prakriti Sthapanam is Chikitsa. So we are going to work on the Vada Vyadhi where there is a predominance of a samprapti has set in with the Vada predominant. We are working to pacify that Vada, bring it down, bring it down, bring it down, bring it down, and we touch one x-axis where he is going back to his old status of Samaha Swam Karma Kurvade. He has touched the line of swasthya. This is Prakriti Sthapanam. And interestingly, even at that time, he will be Vata Prakriti. With his body traits, all body traits showing the dominance of Vata. But that is his Prakriti, that is the x-axis. He has touched that level. The Prakriti Sthapanam has happened. The Roga has subsided. So, this sort of a Samavastha, Prakriti Sthapanam in Chikitsa is all about the Vaikrita doshas, not about the Prakrita doshas. Prakrita doshas set his Prakriti. Prakrita doshas set his Swasthya. You can treat any disease and bring about the dosha samyam up to the level of what is decided by the Prakrita doshas. You cannot manipulate with the Prakrita doshas. It is something about an idol is made out of clay. And you are going to manipulate it in different way. At one point, you are making to smoothen its surface with the painting of some plaster of Paris or painting with some red wax. And that work is finished. Or you are going to cover it with the golden flakes, gold flakes. And that work is completed. So all the areas of the mud or earth or clay idol is covered now with gold. And it looks exactly like a golden idol. And you decided to put some precious stones like diamonds and everything on its head decorations and everything. Putting some extraordinary earrings, putting some mala. Now it looks so beautiful that that is a gold idol. But the fact remains that this is not a gold idol. This is a clay idol. You can't change it because that is the Prakriti. That is the Prakriti of that idol. Many things can happen outside. Many sort of decorations are possible. But the fact will remain that this is a clay idol. So many things can happen outside with the doshas. In the Grishma, okay, Vada changes, Pitta changes, Kapha changes. In the Varsha, Vada changes, Pitta changes, Kapha changes. So Chaya Prakopa Prashama Vayur Grishma Dishutrishu. So Grishmam Varsham Sharad. In the Sharad, Vada Shamanam comes. In the Varsha, Vada Kobam happens. The Kupita Vata shows all sorts of issues in the Varsha. Then Sharad comes. Vayu subsides. But that Vayu subsides to a level as decided by the Prakriti. So Prakriti sets the x-axis. You can't go beyond that level. You can't manipulate. So it is happening that Grishma, Varsha influences are reflecting in the periphery in the Vaikrita doshas, not in the Prakrita dosha. And the way in which this Grishma and Varsha influencing Vayu will be different in a Vada Prakriti and Sleshma Prakriti and Pitta Prakriti. In Samadosha Prakriti, it will not be getting afflicted if there is no extraordinary influence. So it is all about that Vaikrita doshas. Prakrita doshas never go to a state of Vishamavastha. Prakrita, I repeat, Prakrita doshas once set never goes to a Vishamavastha post birth. They have a baseline state which never changes. And that is what we find ascertained by Acharya Sushruta in his Sharira Sthana. What is that? prakopo va anyabhavo va kshayo va nobajayade prakritinam swabhavena. Prakopo va anyabhavo va kshayo va nobajayade prakritinam swabhavena. Then jayate tu gadayushi. At the time of nearing death, this prakritinam prakopaha anyabhavaha kshayaha va upajayate. Jayate tu gadayushi. So there are still many ideas, but always as used to happen, the time, and I'm sure that we can't go beyond that. And this is enough, this sort of capsules. I thought of that explaining some of these ideas and then answering a few questions. But I think we will get time. We have sufficient time, so we will look into the questions. I expect more questions to get answered. I think that questions make our sessions moving forward. So our time is over today. We will see the rest of the things in our next session. But at the time, we will find what is there in the chat box. Is there any relevance in telling? Is there any relevance in telling Samapittanila Kabha and not Anila Pitta Kabha or Kabha Pittanila? Why Pitta is said first? These are some interesting questions. Even Chakrapani discusses this point. And he finds some satisfactory answer, at least for himself, that this is done as Samapitta Nilakabha for the sake of making the vrittam, that meter of the sloga, comfortable, which I am not very comfortable with. But anyway, that is one way of explaining it. And other option, alternatively, Chakrapani says that it may also be due to the to show the importance of Agni, which is represented by Pitta, in the formation of Prakriti, in the assimilation of, in the samyojana of that doshas at the time of birth, or even in the entire exercise of Shukla, Artava, Jiva Samyoga. The author may be keen to highlight the importance of Agni, which is represented by Pitta among the three doshas. So that is why he used the phrase Samapitta violating the convention of explaining Pitta, Vada Pitta Kapha. So these are all assumptions. Karta Kritva Divangadaha. The author authored the text and went to the heavens. So now everything else is we are assume that this could be his in his mind, or that could be there in his mind. Karta Kritva Divangadaha. So we have to fight for that. That's all. Then is the reference from that is I hope it Dr. Reena is asking about the reference in Sushruta, that is Sushrudam Sharira. I think it is in the 4th chapter. Then Samaprakriti persons, is it rare to get? The question is not complete. Samaprakriti persons, yes, Samaprakriti persons are very rare to get. Maybe I think if you find somebody, put him in the museum, because there may not be many chances to see again. What about Manasika Prakriti? It cannot be changed. But we see people who are completely ignorant can become enlightened individuals. We will have to come to that. Manasa Prakriti, if we violate at this point, I think we will not reach anywhere. So first we will discuss about Deha Prakriti, and then we will come slowly to Manasa Prakriti. So I think today's questions, all the questions are answered. So there is no arrear questions. Whereas we have arrear questions, one set of questions in the group and one questions from the previous session, we will come to it. So thank you very much. We will meet again on Wednesday. Bhishajam sadhuvrittanam bhadram agamashalinam abhyastakarmanam bhadram bhadrabhilashinam. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.